what's been going on in the Pac-12?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously everyone knows the big news. Late last year, USC, UCLA decided they're jumping to the Big Ten for the 2024 season. Then it came out that Colorado was going to the Big 12. Now Arizona State, and Utah are all following them. Now, just a few days ago, Washington and Oregon are now going to the Big 12 or Big 10. We're left with 4 teams in the Pac-12, Pac-10, Pac-4, if you want to call it that now. And you need at least 8 teams to remain a conference in NCAA play. It's not looking likely.
No.
I've come up with a few different kind of scenarios here for Cal, Stanford, Washington State, and Oregon State. So, I mean, obviously, if you want to keep the Pac-12 alive and essentially the Pac-8, you could try and lure some of those teams on the west side of the map from the Mountain West Conference. San Diego State has already said no fairly recently. I doubt they'd say yes now. But you have Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, Air Force, San Jose State, UNLV, Nevada, Hawaii. Like, there's a bunch of teams in there that geographically make sense for the Pac-12. The only issue with that is it's a pretty big buyout relative to how much those schools make for them to leave the Mountain West for the Pac-12. And it looks like the Pac-12 is more focused on finding landing spots for these last 4 teams than bringing other teams in.
Well, right. And you were talking to me before about potentially having, what was it, like Cal and Stanford come to the ACC as like a third conference. It hurts. It's weird, man. Atlantic Coast Conference. That means we're on the East Coast. Like, I don't know. But you did mention how that could actually bridge the gap towards the future. So explain that.
Yeah. So, I mean, realistically, all these other conferences saw how quickly the Pac-12 is dissolving, and they've all turned to survival mode. So for the ACC, getting Cal and Stanford isn't exactly like, oh, we just want to add schools to our conference. It's that survival mode. When you're looking at expansion that every conference is looking at now, if you have teams all across the country, it helps with that expansion. Teams down the line in that Mountain West Conference, in the AAC, stuff like that, they might be more willing to join a conference that has teams all over the place. So you're not like Cal and Stanford, and every week you're going to the complete opposite end of the country.
Right.
That might help things out a little bit down the road. Obviously, some of these conferences, they look at like the academic standing of some of these schools. Getting a Cal and Stanford into that conference really boosts the academic rating in your conference. Because those are 2 schools that, if they really wanted to, could go into the Ivy League section of sports. They're that good of schools from an academic standpoint, although that would be arguably as bad as going independent for those schools because there's little to no money there. You're still going across the country. That is not a good idea. So, yeah, there's I do eventually think that Cal and Stanford will join the ACC. So they need, I think out of the 15 teams that are there, they need 12 yes votes for it to move in. They currently don't have that yet. So they're just kind of waiting for enough approval to add the teams. SMU is also a team they're looking at adding. So bump that 15 to 18. You could do 2 9-team divisions. You could do 3 6-team divisions. Right. However you really want to play that. I do think that Washington State, who said they have no desire to do the cross country travel every week unless they get a boatload of cash, which they're not going to.
No.
I think they're going to the Mountain West. I think that is set in stone, realistic. Locked in. Oregon State, I also believe, is going to go to the Mountain West. Just logistically, they both fit in there. It's still pretty good competition. Like, I mean, San Diego State has good football team, basketball team. Like they're a good sports school. Boise State typically has a good football team. Air Force is always an interesting one. So you've got some competition there. I saw Andrew's comment there.
Yeah, I just saw that.
The other one though that I mentioned before is the AAC. They've mentioned, or they've tried to get out west, expand out there in the past, and they offer more money per year currently than what the Mountain West does. So the Mountain West is $6 million in annual payouts to schools. Now, obviously, all these deals would be renegotiated as soon as you add teams. The TV deals, all that have to be renegotiated. The Mountain West is shown on a mixture of Fox and CBS. The AAC is shown on ESPN. ESPN currently doesn't really have any rights to the West Coast, hardly at all. So I could see them legitimately pushing the AAC to try and get these guys and saying, we'll that price will go way up. We'll pay you way more if you can get us that West Coast. So maybe Washington State, you could talk them into going to Texas. And that's really, you don't have to go much further than that.
Yeah,
that's still quite a ways.
Well, you're talking about north
to south, yeah.
Right.
But you might be able to get them to do that for more money than what the Mountain West can give them. And Oregon State, I could see them going there too, but I do think those two are Mountain West. Yeah,
I can see it. Man, oh man, it's just crazy that we even have to think like this. You know what I mean? Because we could, like I told you before, there was that view that somebody put up that had it if all the teams were played in their right regions and everything like that, and how different things would be. And now we're just like, look, man, we're just trying to fill a conference. This is craziness, man.
Well, the one major thing to look at is, what's the big thing in college football that's happening next year? 12-team playoff.
Yep.
Where it's supposed to be the 5 conference champions and then wild cards the rest of the way.
Right.
Now, you're not going to have the Pac-12, essentially. That's going to be gone.
Right.
So is it just 4 conference champions, probably a group of 5 champion at that point, and then wild cards the rest of the way? Or is it just the 4 and then 8 wild cards? They're going to have to go back to the drawing board on that as well, on the automatic qualifiers and all that, because losing a Power 5 conference for that aspect of college football, let alone just college sports in general, losing the Pac-12 is a massive blow. I mean, it's a conference that's been going for 108 years, something like that. And it's just like money. That, it's gone.
Yeah. So hopefully, it does not look good, but hopefully, maybe some of the scenarios you pulled out, where you bring some of those Mountain West, bring some of those other teams into the Pac-12, at least keep it afloat for this year. I mean, and again, to be clear, it's not happening tomorrow. It's not happening this year. This happened. This is going towards next year in the future.
Summer of 2024. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but hey, there's a long ways away till then. What's closer? College football.